Okay, welcome back to another live stream as I write a whole book using AI as my primary tool. In this episode, we are moving on to chapters 10 and 11 and hopefully getting those done, or at least mostly done. Probably, because I am starting a little late today, apologize for that, but probably what will end up happening is I'll write the beats for these as I've been doing, and then I will probably get through editing one of them. I think it's doubtful that I'll get through both, but we can certainly try, and then I will try to get more written or edited tomorrow. And so let's just go ahead and dive in. And if you're here watching, go ahead and say hi in the chat. I'd love to see you. A lot been going on lately. Just trying to keep up has been a little bit of a hurdle this month. I think it was I was optimistic on how much I could get done this month when I'm launching my membership and putting more content into the membership and trying to do all of these live streams while also maintaining the occasional regular YouTube video. Yeah, it was a little more than I could chew, I think, but we're still doing well. And if all goes well, I should definitely be finishing this book before the end of the month. And ideally, maybe if I can hustle a little bit this week, maybe put some of the other things aside for a little bit. Maybe I can get through this most of the book by the end of the week. So we'll see. We've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We got 20. So if I can maintain an average of 2 per day, we'll be done in, so if we do 6 days, that'd be 12. And then so we'd be done next week, basically. I know next week is Thanksgiving here in the United States, and I will be taking Thanksgiving off. But I'll still be writing probably on Wednesday and the Friday around it. So if all goes well, we can do it by then. Maybe a little faster if I can maybe do some work outside of these live videos and put some of the other things aside so I can do that. I'd like to finish this book if we can. So let's get to the 2 for today. This is what we're covering. In Transylvania, Van Helsing refuses to help. Van Helsing explains his situation and why he no longer associates with humans anymore. This is when we get the big reveal that he is, in fact, also a vampire, but he has aged, so he still looks like they knew him, an old doctor. He explains that the youth that comes from being a vampire comes from drinking blood, and he has not drunk any blood. This mystifies and slightly horrifies Mina because she didn't even think abstaining was possible. After some long conversations, Van Helsing agrees to help. And then in the next chapter, Games and Trials, Van Helsing sends them to find a pack of werewolves related to Dracula. That's all I've got for this chapter. So I'm just going to start dictating the beats. I may pull in Claude to help me brainstorm certain bits because I'm feeling lazy tonight. But whatever happens, let's just, I guess, go ahead and get started and stop rambling about it. So let me turn on my dictation software, which for all those that are curious is Nuance's Dragon Professional Individual, which is still the best dictation software if you're looking for something that's real time, that'll like dictate things in real time. The OpenAI's Whisper is a better transcription software, but you have to feed it the files. And so I can't just like transcribe in real time. I think somebody needs to invent that, some tool that will take Whisper, the model used by OpenAI, and find a way to make it so you can get real-time dictation out of that, because that would be awesome. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's get to this. Van Helsing Abraham Van Helsing. Abraham Van Helsing opens the giant doors, comma, and Mina is relieved to see that he is still alive, comma, and still at the castle. Period. Abraham looks them up and down, comma, as if surprised at first, comma, and he even looks at Sherlock Holmes with even more surprise than he looks at the others, comma, but gets a resigned look and decides to go back inside without saying a word. Period. New line. Mina follows him in, comma, asking him why he is just turning around and ignoring them. Period. Then she actually gets a little angry, comma, and tells him that he hasn't answered any of their letters, comma, and they've been worried sick, comma, and that he should have talked to them. Period. They thought he was dead. Period. And now that the brides of Dracula are come to London, ... New line. Van Helsing. Abraham interrupts Mina, comma, asking her to clarify that the brides of Dracula are still alive. Period. Mina responds that yes, they are, comma, and they are up to something, period. They just took possession of some kind of rare ancient flute, comma, but they don't know what they are scheming, period. Mina is certain that now that they have been traveling for a month, comma, the brides have probably had time to make a lot more progress, comma, all because Abraham wouldn't write them or respond to any of their inquiries. Period. New line. Abraham tells them to follow him, comma, and they all file into the castle, comma, through a number of winding stone corridors, comma, and into a large study, period. While they are moving through the house, comma, we get a description of Dracula's castle, comma, which is not as gloomy as it used to be, comma, but is cleaner and more practical, comma, obviously made that way by Abraham's long stay there. Period. New line. They enter Abraham's study, comma, which is filled with books, comma, and a large writing table where Abraham has obviously spent a lot of his time, period. There are notes everywhere, comma, and we get a description of the chaotic nature of the room, comma, which nevertheless has a certain method to the madness, period. There is also a large sheet up against one wall, comma, covering something that Mina and the others cannot see, period. Sherlock makes a side remark about how fascinating it is to see so many books, comma, and he would love to spend some time there to peruse the library with Abraham, period. He also introduces himself, comma, but Abraham interrupts him, saying that he knows who Sherlock is, period. Abraham tells him that he probably doesn't remember, comma, but Abraham actually met Sherlock many years ago at a conference in Denmark, where Sherlock was speaking about the characteristics of newly deceased corpses. Period. Sherlock replies that of course he remembers, comma, and rattles off a number of things that he remembered about Abraham Van Helsing when they met. Period. Abraham merely nods without much of a reaction. Period. New line. Abraham then turns to Mina and Arthur and Jonathan, comma, and hands them a diary, comma, which is full of everything that he has collected about the brides of Dracula, period. He summarizes what he has learned, colon, which is that they are still alive, comma, but they have never been back to Dracula's castle, period. They are also born from different eras, period. The oldest is named, comma, and is only 100 years younger than Dracula himself, period. Then there is an auburn-haired vampire who has been alive, comma, or rather undead, comma, for 200 years, period. And then there is, comma, who is the most recently turned, comma, only 20 or 30 years prior. Period. New line. Mina is feeling slightly uncomfortable in this room, comma, and she can't figure out why. Period. There is just something in the air that she can't pinpoint. Period. And there is still something that is bothering her about Abraham, comma, and it is only now that she can sense what it is, period. He doesn't have the typical smell that most humans have, period. He seems to have no smell at all, period. New line. Mina suddenly grows tense, comma, and begins quizzing Abraham again about why he hasn't responded to any of their letters or telegrams. Period. She hears Sherlock cough slightly behind her, comma, and she whirls on Sherlock and asks him if he knows something that the rest of them don't, comma, correctly assuming that Sherlock has deduced something, period. Sherlock only responds that it is not his place to say anything, period. New line. Abraham responds that it is okay. Comma, and that he will tell them. Open parenthesis, though he doesn't say what he is going to tell them yet. Close parenthesis. Period. But first, comma, he needs to know something for certain. comma, and with that, he pulls the giant sheet down from the wall, comma, revealing what was hiding behind it, period. New line. Immediately, comma, Mina uncomfortable feeling grows in a huge rush to something almost unbearable, comma, and she is almost physically repelled backward toward the door of the room, period. On the wall is a collection of crosses and other religious artifacts of some kind, comma, including a Star of David, comma, the Crescent and Star of Islam, comma, another that looks like a spoked wheel, comma, another that looks similar to the cross that Mina vaguely recognizes as something Egyptian, comma, with a loop on the top, period. There is also various other tools, comma, including multiple stakes, hawthorn stakes, comma, various silver instruments, comma, large bundles of garlic, comma, etc. New line. Mina, comma, feeling that she might be being attacked, comma, looks to Abraham, comma, who is nodding in as if his suspicions are confirmed, period. He tells Mina, comma, open quote, so you did turn, comma, and yet the fact that you are here with them, comma, and they have not turned, comma, tells me that you have not lost all of your humanity, period, close quote. Jonathan steps in to try and defend Mina, comma, stepping in front of her, comma, but it is only then that Mina recognizes that Abraham is also very tense, comma, and is almost shaking where he stands next to the wall, period. New line. She pushes past Jonathan and says in amazement, open quote, you, comma, How did he get you too? Question mark. Close quote. Abraham finally looks emotional for the first time, comma, and tells them that they have a lot to discuss. Period. New line. They retreat to another room, comma, away from the wall of religious instruments. And other vampire hunting tools. Period. Van Helsing invites them to sit in the main hall, comma, where there is a fair amount of dusty yet luxurious furniture. Period. Abraham then proceeds to tell them that Dracula bit him shortly before he died, comma, and said something about a virus being in him, period. Abraham, being a doctor, comma, decided to stay behind to see if he could find a cure for the virus, period. So far, he has had no luck, period. Arthur asks about Abraham's age, comma, noting that he still looks like an older doctor that they all remember. Everything they know about vampires suggests that they become younger and more youthful. Period. Abraham responds that that is one of his greatest discoveries, comma, though it has not been without great effort. Period. Early on, he discovered some writings from Dracula that suggested that the youth of a vampire came from ingesting blood. Comma. And that if a vampire were to not drink blood, comma, the aging process would remain the same, comma, and a person would age at a normal human rate, comma, or at least that is what Abraham has surmised. Period. New line. Mina is slightly horrified at this revelation, comma, because she didn't think abstinence was possible from blood, period. She thought it was something she had to ingest or she would die, period. Abraham only responds that it certainly feels that way, comma, and it almost never, ever lets up, period. Mina can't imagine how he is feeling in that moment, period. It has been a month since she had her fill of blood, comma, and already she feels ravenous. Period. If Van Helsing if Abraham has genuinely not had any blood yet, comma, what would he be feeling? Question mark. New line. Sherlock seems to think the same, comma, and he asks Van Helsing how he could possibly deal with such a difficult task, period. Abraham replies that the lust for blood is like an addiction, comma, and as a doctor, comma, he dealt with many others who have similar addictions. In other areas of life. Period. He has found that enforcing clear, comma, strict rules is the number one way to deal with an addiction, period. And so he has various rules for himself, period. The first is to avoid human contact wherever possible, comma, which makes Jonathan and Arthur look slightly unsettled, period. Abraham says that the second rule is to remain inside the castle until he can find a cure. Period. New line. This reminds Mina that they are not just here to find Abraham, comma, but that they actually need his help, period. She says as much to Abraham, comma, telling him everything that they know about the three brides, comma, which seems to match what Abraham knows of them, period. Mina tells him that they need him to help figure out what the brides are up to, comma, and how they might be able to stop them, period. Abraham immediately says that his work is better suited here, comma, and that he still has a lot more work to do, period. New line. Mina presses the issue, comma, pointing out that they did just travel for weeks to find him, comma, and they are not just going to travel back without him, period. Abraham replies that if he were to leave the castle, comma, he will be a danger to all humans, period. Mina replies that she has managed to keep it in check, comma, only feeding on those who deserve it, comma, to which Abraham replies that in a harsh tone, comma, looking her dead in the eye, comma, that nobody deserves it, period. New line. Mina changes tactics. Is hurt, comma, but changes tactics, comma, telling him that more people will die if they don't start the brides, period. Abraham stands up and with a forceful attitude tells her that he is not leaving the castle, comma, that finding a cure is the most important thing, comma, and that if he can find that cure, comma, they can use it against the brides, comma, but not before, period. He tells them that they came all this way for nothing, comma, leaves the room, comma, and slams the door behind him, period. Okay, that's chapter 10. I know in the chapter summary here I said that he would agree to help at the end, but I felt like it would make more sense to end on a slightly more cliffhangery, a little more conflict in the story there. So I'm just going to copy this. We're going to go to, well, actually I still need to build the super prompts for chapters 10 and 11. So let's go to chapter 9 and copy that. Hello everyone. I see Ray of Light, Honeybun, Robin. You're all here every day practically, so there should be an award for that. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to change something I'm starting to do now is I'm changing the format of the super prompt. So instead of these capitalized tags here with brackets around it, I'm switching to what do you call these little greater than and less than signs, and all lowercase. And the reason for that is because this is more likely what the AI is used to seeing. And I believe OpenAI even has recommendations that point to using a markup like this, because this is what's used in HTML. It's what's used in XML. So I'm just going to switch that over to that style real quick. So my goal for this is at least a minimum of 50,000 words, because, we're trying to do this NaNoWriMo style. I would have normally said a lot more, like 75,000 words or so. But I'm not sure it's going to get there based on how much I've done so far. But we'll see. All right, got all that switched out. But I gotta switch it here as well. Chapter beats. Overview. Setting. So AA, you asked if it'd be possible to write an AI assisted and generated novel and get it published by traditional publishers. If they don't know that it used AI. Which, I don't think they would be, especially once AI gets even better than it is now. I think if they did know, that they would probably not publish it right now unless it was like a novelty thing, like, hey, this one was published. But it depends on how much you're using it. Like if you're just using it for brainstorming and all that, like that for sure isn't going to be an issue. Okay. But then again, if you want my real opinion, it is that traditional publishing is overrated and you should not do it. I know, hot take. You're going to make far less money going the traditional route. And it's entirely likely that your we'll say like publishing journey could be dead in the water when it starts, because it's traditional publishing is not as effective as it used to be for getting exposure for new authors. All right, now I've got these beats. I'm going to stick them in here. We're going to add numbers to them. Add the 100 paragraphs. Instruction for each beat. I wonder if maybe we should just do one chapter tonight. I'm not sure I'll be able to get too much progress done on a second. All right. Well, I can still get started on the beats, but I'm going to go ahead and start this prompt going in Claude. Might as well. Let's see. There's not really any reason why I asked for paragraphs instead of words. I did a test a while back which suggested that paragraphs is more effective at getting it to write longer. Because I don't know, for whatever reason, AI struggles with word count and knowing how much word count is which. You never answered a single letter or telegram for over a year. Miss Player 30. So where do you publish the books? You publish them yourself. And that's what I teach in my course and membership, which is easily found at storyhacker.ai. Basically, I teach you an integrated approach of using AI and how to use it at every stage of the publishing journey. Currently, I'm also about to start. This is really exciting, actually. I'm about to start. I recorded the first videos on this today. About to start documenting my journey as I create my own fiction business, selling direct. So selling people directly and getting traffic from things like ads and organic traffic and stuff like that. And so, I don't have that set up yet, which is why I'm not teaching that yet, but I am going to document it inside the membership for those that are interested in seeing how I do that. There's a lot to it, and I'll release a video kind of previewing what that looks like at some point. But yeah, let's see. I'm just curious to see how well this does. Oh, it stopped. I have to tell it to continue. That doesn't happen too often. Let's see. Let's copy this. See how much that first bit is. 3,000 words? Really? Dang. Okay. I guess that I did have a lot. How many words was my beats? 1,600 words. Yeah, so that's a lot. I remember when I was first getting into self-publishing, I had similar concerns. Obviously, AI wasn't around back then, but I remember talking to a friend of mine who worked at Del Rey, and basically, I was like asking him, like, if I try to self-publish, is that going to like ruin my chances of going traditionally published? And he gave me a nice diplomatic answer that's like, well, it won't hurt. Like it isn't really a factor and all of these things. But I've since wised up a little bit, and now I know that it's, and I'm biased obviously, but like 100% self-publishing is the better way to go. Like there's one way that you could get me to traditionally publish a book at this point in my career. And it is, if I can write a Star Wars book, I will write a Star Wars book. And that will be obviously traditionally published because they wouldn't let me self-publish that. And any other major tie-in fiction that I want to do, I'd love to do like a Halo book or something. There's some tie-in fiction that I would love, but other than that, I would never, ever allow somebody else to take my books and do what they think is right for them at the marketing and everything, because they do not know better than I do. That much I have learned. And mostly because they do not love my book as much as I do, right? And nobody ever will. Nobody will ever care for your book the way that you do. All right, hang on. We gotta copy this, and then if you have questions about that, I can get into it a little more. We might only be getting to one chapter or so today. I would love to continue writing the beats though. Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna keep writing the beats. But this is a good chapter here. Um, really? Dang it. This is a good chapter. I'm gonna. I'm not sure I actually like the second part, but I'll grab it. I might just change it. Or I could. Yeah, I'm going to take this and say redo this section so that it only does that section. Hopefully. Robin, yeah, that's another good point. Like, if you're writing a book that is selling well, like the publishers come to you. Publishers are much more likely to want to work with you if you already have a platform and already having success. So even if you want to publish traditionally, starting as a self-publisher is actually a better way to go if you want a good chance at it. The problem is, by the time you get successful enough that they come knocking at your door, you realize that just sticking with your current strategy is going to work for you much more than going with them. All right. Okay. Okay. There we go. That works. Okay. Okay. We got a good amount of words here. 3,500 words. It's going to be awesome. What's that leave us at for the full book? 22,000. That's good. Yeah, I'm probably not going to get to editing today, but I really want to just do the beats for one more chapter. If you all will indulge me for that, and then we can get started on the editing. But that's I'm probably not going to get far. So let's go to the outline. Oh yeah. Um, so here's a point. I'm actually going to need to brainstorm a few things with Claude. So let's say here is a brief description of what happens in the next chapter. Can you brainstorm several, we'll say 5 different expanded chapter summaries? Um, 5 different expanded chapter summaries. Um, with specific details of what happens in the scenes. AA, you're asking, isn't the marketing for self-publishing a nightmare? It depends on your definition of nightmare. If you hate doing any kind of marketing, then yeah, it probably won't be the best. But here's the sad truth of it. I mentioned already that traditional publishers usually like people that already have a platform. The reason for that is because it makes them have less work to do. Um, and it's basically accepted at this point that authors, especially newer authors who are becoming traditionally published, still have to do a lot of the marketing themselves because, again, the publishers do not care about your book as much as you do. And so it will be expected that you have an email list. It will be expected that you talk to that email list and that you nurture it a little bit and try to get sales and do a lot of promotional things. And um, basically, the days of traditional publishing doing everything for you are long gone. I'd say the biggest advantage that traditional publishing gives you is it gives you free access to an editor. Um, and in some cases, a team of editors, people that can really make your book shine. You can still do that yourself, of course, but you have to pay for it. Um, and it can sometimes be difficult to find the right person. Um, but when it comes to marketing, I do not see it as being that much more, uh, as being much easier going the traditional route than going the self-publishing route. Self-publishing, the marketing is um, requires time, but when you have systems for it, it's not as complex as people think. And Miss Player, that's another good point. Is they are pretty corporate. I don't think they necessarily force you to change their books because they don't like it, but they would point out, like, if you were trying to appeal to a specific group of people, they would point out, like, oh, that audience wouldn't necessarily like this, which actually could be a good thing. Um, but traditional publishing is in enough niches that they would understand that. I mean, they're not going to censor you, really. Like, that doesn't really happen unless you're like really uh, problematic. Well, let's just say, but you have to really be problematic for that to be an issue, because someone somewhere is going to like it. The biggest advantage of self-publishing, however, is that you can appeal to specific niches that are too small for traditional publishers to pay attention, but are still big enough that a single author self-publishing can do fine. I think a good example of this, may, there may be traditional publishers in this now, but um, Amish romance, I think, was a niche that like nobody wanted, or you know, um, you didn't see much about it, but that's one that self-publishing kind of took over. As far as I know, I'm not a huge expert in romance, um, but that, yeah, and I think Lit RPG started out as kind of an indie only thing, and I'm sure there are lit RPGs that are traditionally published now, but that definitely started as an indie movement. So yeah, that's some stuff there. All right, so let's look at some of these things. So the group initially doubts Van Helsing's suggestion to seek help from the werewolves. Um, an old abandoned mine in the remote wilderness. I like that. Um, large alpha male named Velcon. Let's look up this name. Yeah, they're pulling from Van Helsing wiki. So we won't use that name. Bran. No, we're not going to use Bran either. Van Helsing's urging the group travels to a remote castle rumored to be inhabited by a lineage of werewolves. Yeah, these aren't the best. But they gave me an idea, as they often do. So I'm going to start. After Abraham stormed out the previous night, comma, he eventually gives them permission to stay long enough to figure out how they were going to get back to England, comma, which Arthur begrudgingly takes on himself, comma, heading back into town the next morning, period. But Mina is inwardly furious, comma, and multiple times tried to talk to Abraham again, comma, but Abraham refused to speak to her, period. New line. The next night, she was so frustrated that she actually leapt out of the balcony from the room where she was staying, comma, and flew into the night, comma, trying to become a vampire bat again, but not succeeding, period. By this time, comma, she is extremely thirsty, comma, and wonders if there is any crime happening in the small town nearby that she could justify to feed on him, period. She also briefly considers feeding on some of the local livestock, comma, but experience has taught her that doing so doesn't help her thirst much, comma, and is positively revolting, comma, so she sets that thought aside, comma, remembering that Van Helsing said that blood isn't 100% necessary for sustenance, comma, but is more of an addiction, comma, and if he can do it, comma, she can too, comma, though she decides makes that decision not to go searching for someone to feed on, more out of spite toward Abraham than out of personal willpower. Period. New line. She tries several more times to turn into a bat and fly into the air, comma. Each time unsuccessful, comma, and she falls back to the earth with a thud that would have broken her bones had she not been a vampire. Period. It is only then that she notices from afar off, comma, with her acute hearing, comma, that somebody else is out in the night. Period. She tries to listen, comma, but there is a lot of wolf howling nearby that gets in the way, comma, so she isn't quite able to determine who or what it is that she is hearing, comma. But as she listens, she eventually hears someone running very quickly up the rocky slopes of the mountains nearby, comma, and she decides to investigate, period. New line. She follows the person for some time, comma, and the howling of the wolves grows louder, period. She momentarily thinks about going back, comma, scared that the wolves might attack her, comma, before remembering that she is a vampire and most wolves would probably not present her with any real threat, period. New line. Eventually, comma, she finally lays eyes on the person she is pursuing, comma, and recognizes him as a man who is familiar to her, comma, and as she gets closer, she recognizes him as Abraham Van Helsing. Period. With that in mind, comma, she tries to get more stealthy, comma, realizing that Abraham probably has the same vampire sense as she does, comma, and likely can hear her as well, comma. But it is only then that she sees another form up on a ridge where Van Helsing has landed. Period. This form is that of a wolf. Period. New line. It seems for a while that Abraham and the wolf communicate for some time, comma, which Mina finds very odd, comma, because how can you communicate with a wolf? Question mark. Period. Mina waits for a while, comma, watching them, comma, and eventually Abraham leaves the wolf and heads back toward the castle. Period. Mina waits where she is, comma, not making a sound, comma, until she is satisfied that Van Helsing has gone. Period. New line. Mina looks back at the wolf, comma, and is surprised to see it staring at her from a distance, comma, clearly looking right at her. Period. Unsettled, comma, she quickly leaves and heads back to the castle. Period. The way it looks at her makes her feel that this is no ordinary wolf, comma. Period. When she arrives back at the castle, comma, she finds Abraham Van Helsing waiting for her in the courtyard. Period. Comma, confirming Mina's suspicion that he had heard her approach. Period. She asks him what that was all about, comma, meeting with the wolf, comma, and he replies that the wolves are actually old and wise creatures, comma, and are not the enemy. The enemy. Period. New line. Mina asks for more information, and Abraham motions her to sit down as they enter the castle together. Period. Mina sits on a large sofa with leather upholstery. Near the fireplace, comma, and Abraham takes a seat in a leather armchair across from her. Period. New line. Abraham tells her that Dracula was a very unique vampire, comma, because he could not only change into a bat and had all of the qualities of a vampire, comma, but he was also a werewolf, comma. And was known to shift into a wolf from time to time, period. He gained his wolf-like abilities genetically, comma, whereas the vampire abilities were gained via a vampire bite like most vampires, period. So far, comma, to his knowledge, comma, there have been no other vampire slash werewolf hybrids since, period. The wolf that he was meeting with was part of the same pack through which Dracula that is descended from the initial wolves that would have been Dracula's family. Period. But these are no ordinary wolves, period. They are werewolves, comma, and often walk around unnoticed by the villagers as men and women. Period. New line. Mina is amazed to hear all of this new information, comma, and asks him what this has to do with them. Period. Abraham replies only that he went to inform the wolves of the situation, comma, specifically relating to the three brides, comma, whom the wolves are not particularly fond of, period. The wolves have agreed to meet with Mina and the others to see if they can help, period. New line. Mina grows encouraged, comma, realizing that Van Helsing had not completely abandoned them, comma, and that he did indeed plan to help, comma, if only to help connect them to these werewolves. Period. He also tells them that the werewolves warned him that there was something strange in the air, comma, and that the brides might not be as far away as they think, period. Mina wonders why they would have followed them, comma, when it seems that the brides had everything that they wanted in London, comma, and Abraham does not know the answer to this, period. New line. Jonathan Harker comes downstairs, comma, yawning as if he had just awoken from his sleep, comma, and makes an offhand comment about how he never thought he would be able to sleep soundly in Dracula's castle again, comma, but has been impressed with the work that Van Helsing has put into it. Period. It feels like a different place. Period. He then notices Mina and Abraham conversing together and asks them what is going on, comma, recognizing that something important must have been recently talked about. Period. Mina explains to him everything that she and Abraham have just been discussing about the werewolves, comma, which fills Jonathan with even more amazement. Period. He knew that Dracula had turned into a wolf, comma, but he had no idea that there were others like him, comma, but with just the wolf shape shifting abilities and not vampire abilities. Period. New line. Van Helsing gives us a little bit of backstory, comma, explaining that the ability to shapeshift into a werewolf, comma, and the abilities granted by vampirism, comma, are brought on by the same virus, comma, though they have separate origins. Period. So far, comma, the records that Dracula left behind indicate that there was some kind of otherworldly event that took place around 800 AD that unleashed the virus into the world, comma, and that it was spread initially by bats, comma, rats, comma, and wolves, comma, leading to werewolves and vampires. Period. Jonathan asks about the rats, comma, and what they turned people into, comma, assuming the bats turned people into vampires and the wolves turned people into werewolves, comma, and Abraham replies that he is uncertain. Period. New line. Turning back to Mina, comma, Abraham tells her that the wolves have agreed to meet her the following night, comma, and that she should prepare. Period. He tells her that he will give her what additional knowledge she needs to communicate with them, comma, and to prepare her mentally, comma, because meeting with a werewolf is a very different experience that can leave even a vampire a little flustered. Period. Mina can believe this, comma, given the way the wolf had looked at her as she was following Van Helsing. Period. There had been an ancientness to that stare. Period. She agrees to prepare to meet the werewolf the following night. Period. Okay, I think that about does it for that. We got 1,300 words of beats here. Good. So let's go now. I'm going to take the chapter 10 super prompt. I'm going to copy it into the chapter 11 super prompt page. We're going to grab outline. Okay. Stick this into overview. Oh shoot. I didn't get that setting right for the last chapter. I hope it did okay. I'm actually going to leave the setting off on this one. I think the setting is well enough talked about in the beat, or in the beats. So I'll just not include that. Okay. And we'll eliminate these beats. And we'll copy these. We'll number these. And then add a little bit about 100 paragraphs to each one. Okay. Now we're gonna write this. By the way, I need to rephrase this as chapter 10 winner, so I can find it later. And paste this one and start generating. So, a couple of questions. AA, you said self-publishing is pretty cool proposition, but isn't there a problem with oversaturation in self-publishing? It was a lot better before, but now the big name trad authors are up on the list. I'm not sure what list you're talking about necessarily, but regarding oversaturation, like, it's not one or the other. Like, the saturation of books affects both self-publishing and traditional publishing. So, like, you're going to have to deal with that regardless of which way you go, right? Which is one of the reasons why traditional publishers are struggling these days, is trying to keep up with the competition. Because, yeah, there is a lot of more oversaturation. But the key to getting over the saturation is to learn good marketing. Because there may be an oversaturation of books, but I can guarantee you there won't be as much of an oversaturation of marketers. Okay, this clearly did not work. So I'm just going to delete that. We're going to try it again. I wonder if I copied this properly. Let's try it again. Okay, this is a little better. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that? Yeah, so Debbie, Claude, the free version of Claude has been limited for a while now. I don't know if they've increased that limitation or not. Um, you will have fewer prompts available to you depending on the length of your super prompts, or your prompts in general. Like if you're just using basic back and forth chat prompts, like that's not going to use up a whole lot of your stuff. But if you're putting in thousands and thousands of words in your super prompts, like I am right now, um, those will use up the amount that Claude gives you, especially on the free version, faster. Now on the paid version, I have yet to actually run into that, and you can see that by following my live streams every day. Like I haven't actually run into it, um, but you can still run into it with the paid versions too. You don't get unlimited, but you do get a lot more with the paid version. And so far, I haven't run into any issues. This isn't too great either. Let's try this one more time. Or I shouldn't say one more time, just another time. And let's see if there's anything I can improve about this. So She Breathes in Gold asks, besides the speed, how does an AI story feel versus your own story? Does the story still feel like yours, or does it feel more like editing somebody else's story? It's hard to say. It's a little bit of both. As you can see, I put a lot of my own input into this, so it still feels like my story, but it feels like I handed it off to a junior writer and they wrote the first draft that I then have to approve, if that makes sense. So it feels more like micromanaging a ghostwriter, if that makes sense. So still mine, still my story, which if I paid a ghostwriter to write my book based on my outline, that would still be my story. Let's just be clear on what we're talking about. Is it exactly how I would write it? Not necessarily. I can usually improve on it. Sometimes it does better than I could do it. For instance, when we were going through Sherlock's dialogue in one of the last few chapters, I was reading that and like, there's no way I could have written this better. Um, so yeah, I have not tried aggressively to sell any of my AI books. But I guarantee you there would be no difference in how they sell versus non AI books because, first of all, I don't advertise it. Second of all, Amazon does nothing different between whether it is AI generated or not. And yeah, not something I'm concerned about. Also, I plan to have more of a selling direct first strategy in the near future. And I mentioned earlier in the stream, but I'll mention it again. In my AI Storyteller premium membership, which you can get at storyhacker.ai, and I'll link it down below as well. It should actually be linked there if you're watching this on YouTube right now. Um, in that membership, something I'm going to be starting very soon is basically documenting my process and my journey to create a my own store and my own selling direct strategy. It's very, very different from the strategies that you have on Amazon, which is one of the reasons why I'm sort of documenting the process, not trying to teach it yet, because I need to kind of basically prove that the techniques that I'm using work. And I'm going to be using techniques that are very well known in the direct response marketing community and are some of the same techniques that I used for my actual membership. Um, so let's see, how's this doing? Man, this isn't what I asked it to write at all. What is going on here? Let's see. Oh. Ooh. Almost got rid of that. Let me just scan through this to make sure nothing is different. I did change one thing, so let's try this again. Um, yeah, she breathes in gold. Be sure, feel free to ask me any questions. I can't always get to the ones on the YouTube channel anymore. I used to, when it was just starting out, I had enough time, but now these days I can't really do it. I do pop in now and then to answer some of the questions. So this is the right place for that. Yeah, Debbie mentioned you once tried to use a ghostwriter, but it wasn't worth your time or money. It can be hard to find one that is affordable and actually good. I tried it once as well. I found one person eventually that was okay. But even with them, the rates were relatively low. It would have been thousands and thousands of dollars to actually write a full book. So yeah, it's tough. Um, AI is much better, or at least much more affordable. I shouldn't say much better. There are some great ghostwriters out there. Um, and I may actually want to hire some ghostwriters at some point for some of the books that I want to write because I know I'm not going to be able to get to them all, even using AI. Um, and maybe we could set up a sort of industry of AI friendly ghostwriters that could be a little bit, maybe a little more affordable than a typical ghostwriter, but is doing this process like I'm doing. Um, but that's something to think about for the future, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm the one to set that up or what have you, but I think even with everything with AI, um, like having a ghostwriter would still be something I'd consider once I'm able to afford more of it. But that'll be a little ways out. Let's see. We're pretty much at the end here. It's 9 o'clock where I am. I want to see if it did. Okay, I think this time it did a little better. So, Blue Sky, you asked, how long would it normally take you to write one book on average? And now with AI, how long is it taking me? This might not be the answer you want, but it's not taking me that much less time. It is saving me some time. That is definitely for certain. The fact that I can get almost through 2 chapters in 2 hours is really awesome. And like the last chapter we generated was like over 3,000 words. That one would have taken me well over 2 hours to write, just doing it the normal way, and then would have required edits and everything. I mean, this one requires edits as well. and often more extensive edits. But like that would have taken me a long time. And it looks like, just glancing at this now, that this seems to be better. Yep, this looks like the one. But let's see where it goes. Oh, this is all. Actually, it hasn't actually finished this yet. So I'll ask it to continue. But we can copy this, put it into chapter 11. $3,000 words. Pretty decent. Don't really like the way Van Helsing is speaking. It's too formal. But that is something I can just change with editing. Maybe I'll run it again. Hang on. Let's go back to the super prompt. I want to look at the character. Abraham von Helsing. Physical attributes. Nondescript practical clothes. Moves with quiet restrained power and speaks softly in a Dutch accent. He is generally more secluded and not prone to many words. He is more blunt and direct. And brooding. And I think this one is going to be my winner, so I'm just going to call it my winner, chapter 11 winner. But just for fun, I'm going to run this one more time with that change to his character and see if it does anything. So Blue Sky, you're asking about Atticus. Atticus is a writing and formatting tool, primarily formatting, but I use it for just to put all my written material. It was developed by Dave Chesson, who, full disclosure, is my boss at Kindlepreneur, which is Kindlepreneur is one of the largest and, I'm biased, but I would say one of the best resources for self-publishers who want to learn how to self-publish. And he also created a software called Publisher Rocket, which is excellent. You should definitely check out. And Atticus, which is a little more recent and is an excellent formatting software. And it's what I use. And it's what I would use even if I didn't work for him. I bought Publisher Rocket before I worked for him, so that says something. Am I always live at this time? Yes. For the most part, evenings from 7 to 9 is when I'm able to do this. There may be maybe an occasional Saturday or something where I do it at a different time. I think I have next Wednesday off, not this coming Wednesday, but the following. And so I think for that one, I might do it earlier in the day. I might even do like a super long live stream where I go for like 6 hours or something. I don't know. I wouldn't look forward to that, honestly. But I also want to finish this book. So um, okay, let me just check on this, see how it's doing. Blue Sky, thank you for documenting your process. Been fun to watch. Well, thank you. I've been enjoying these every single night. I often get to the end of the day and I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired. Like I just want to create some content right now. I don't want to go live. But you guys always make it really worth it, and I find myself energized by the end of these things. So thank you for that. I'm just gonna wait for this thing um, to finish generating. You know, it looks like we got there. Yeah, I don't think this is better. So I'll just go with the one I declared the winner. Which is 3,000 words. Guys, we generated over 6,000 words tonight. That is something I would never have been able to do in 2 hours. Now, granted, I haven't had a chance to do a full edit. By the time I finish the full edit, it will probably be closer to the amount of time it would have normally taken me to write 6,000 words. But here's the thing. AI isn't necessarily about saving you time. It does save a little time. And I think the better I get, the faster I get at it. But AI for me is more about saving me headache. There is so much decision fatigue that happens when writing the traditional way, because every time you write a sentence, you're making little decisions on what should happen. And, you know, writing the story beats out like I do is similar, but it's not nearly as taxing because I don't have to overthink what I should actually be saying. I'm just sort of stream of consciousness rattling out what's in my brain about what should happen, which I find much more enjoyable for myself. And I just don't have to think about the specifics of what the scene actually looks like. And so then I get the text, and then it becomes a matter of editing, and that's also enjoyable to me as well. Not as enjoyable as writing the story beats out in the first place, but still really, really nice. And basically, yeah, that's the most value I get out of it, is saving me the headache and all of the decision fatigue. Also, there are little happy accidents from time to time, things that it actually does do better than me. Like I already mentioned, Sherlock's dialogue was excellent, and I probably wouldn't have been able to do that myself, at least not naturally. Um, and often it will go in little directions that I wouldn't have expected, or when I'm brainstorming, it gives me some ideas that I would never have had, or pushes me in various directions. So there's a lot more to AI than just saving me time, is basically what I'm trying to say there. All right. Whew. I think that's got to be it for tonight, folks. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you again tomorrow at same time, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, U.S. Eastern. And look forward to talking to you then. See ya.